So, instead of continuing with Lingua Latina per se illustrata, I thought we're doing something different instead. And since I can no longer use this stuff in any way, I must think of something else. And simply reading audiobooks in Latin only does not quite cut it for me. Of course, I will still do this from time to time, because I'm also curious about the original stories in Latin, be it mythology, history, or something completely different. And I also want to teach you the language, but in my own way. So, before we begin our first lesson, again, let me give you a brief overview of the Latin language, and thus also an overview of this course, more or less. Now, Classical Latin is a richly inflected Indo-European language with 4 principal conjugations, multiple non-finite forms, participles, infinitives, gerund or gerundive, and supine, 3 genders, 2 numbers, so don't worry, no dual here, and a 6-case nominal system, whose endings carry syntactic roles. Thus, word order is comparatively free and used for emphasis. And there's already a PDF about all of the conjugation in the community tab somewhere, and even a premium version on Patreon as well. Beginning with the verbal system, the conjugation. Again, each verb has 5 properties, beginning with person. We have first, second, and third. Number, we only have singular and plural, which means one or more than one, so no dual. As for the voice, we only have active and passive. And we have something called deponent verbs, basically passive form with active meaning. And we also have something called semi-deponents, with mixed behavior. As for the moods, we have indicative, subjunctive, imperative, and non-finite moods, infinitive, participle, gerund, and gerundive, as well as supine, used for subordinate or nominal functions. Now, indicative, simply direct factual statements and narrative. Subjunctive has a wide range of use cases, such as purpose, result, indirect questions, various dependent clauses, and potential or idealis meanings, for example, contrary to facts. And the imperative, easy enough, commands. And then tense or temporal system. You see, Latin's tense morphology mainly encodes time with spectral nuances. So we have present, present or habitual. Then we have imperfect, past continuous or habitual, for example, was doing or used to do. Then future, simple future. And then we also have perfect, which is completed past, a resultant or state from an action. And then we have plusquamperfects. This is simply past anterior, an action completed before another past action. And then we have future perfect, an action being completed before a future reference point. Now, morphological background, basically how forms are built. We do have 4 main conjugations by thematic vowel of present stem. So the first a, the second e, the third e or consonant, and the fourth e. And then principal parts. Verbs are usually taught by 3 to 4 principal parts, which would be present, infinitive, perfect, and supine or participle, because many tenses and stems are built from different stems. And lastly, periphrastic constructions. Those are the constructions that have 2 components. So, for example, gerundive plus esse. Esse is the verb to be in Latin. Gerundive plus esse is necessity. Then we have future participle plus esse. And we have compound perfects. Those are very important. So, a small functional summary. When to use what? Use indicative for narration and plain factual prepositions. Use subjunctive for subordinate clauses expressing purpose, result, indirect question, potential and unreal conditions. Use imperative for commands. Use present or imperfect for ongoing or habitual versus past continuous. Perfect plusquamperfect for completed anterior actions. And future or future perfect for future reference or anteriority in the future. And lastly, use passive to express that the subject receives the action. Note the dependent verbs here better look passive, but mean active. And lastly, non-finite forms to be aware of. First, the infinitives. Present active, present passive, perfect active, perfect passive. To say, to have said, to be said. They form very. Used in indirect statement, complementary functions. Then participles. Present active participle, doing. Perfect passive participle, having been done. And adjectival, often forms with are or up plus the agent. And future active participle, about to do. And lastly, gerund or gerundive or supine. The gerund is a verbal noun but has very limited cases. The gerundive is a verbal adjective expressing necessity or obligation, and it forms periphrastic with esse. And we have supine, again limited use with verbs of motion or certain adjectives. Now on to the nominal system, declination. Again, the gender, we have masculine, feminine and neuter. Gender is lexical. Adjectives and pronouns agree in gender, number and case. As for the numbers, again, only single and plural, no dual. Now to the cases. We have nominative, who or what. Subject, predicate, nominative. Genitive, of whom or of what. Here we have possession, partitive, for example, one of the men, characteristic or description. And then we have dative, to whom or for whom. Of course, indirect object, but also reference or benefit. Possession with esse, that would be existence, is dative plus est. And we have advantage as well as disadvantage. And then we have accusative, whom or what. This is the direct object, as well as direction motion toward, extent of time and space, and object of many prepositions. Then we have the ablative. That has quite a lot of different use cases. By, with, from, where. A multifunctional case for means or instrument, often accompanied with cum. Agent with a or up for the passive. Separation or origin, cause, circumstance, time, when or within which, and location with certain prepositions. And then we have the vocative. That is simply a direct address, and is often identical to nominative, with a few exceptions here and there in the singular forms. And technically there is also the locative, in, at, whom or what, and is only surviving for some place names, such as domus, humus, often merged functionally with the ablative. Of course, there is much more to this, but we will get there, one step at a time. Now, additional points on usage and contrasts. You see, accusative versus ablative. Many Latin prepositions determine case and meaning. For example, at plus the accusative equals toward. In plus accusative equals into, motion. In plus ablative equals in or on, for resting point. A or up plus ablative means from or agency. Ablative is a heavy-duty adverbial case. And then the genitive nuance. We have the partitive genitive, objective, subjective genitive, and descriptive genitives. They are very common. Now, genitive expresses varied relational meanings beyond simple possession. And of course, agreements. Again, as mentioned before, adjectives, articles, well, there are no articles in Latin, but pronouns, where present, and participles agree with their head noun in gender, number, and case. And lastly, declensional classes. Again, first, which is a, is mainly feminine. Second, which is us or is masculine or neuter. And third, with varied stems. And then there's also fourth and fifth. Each class has characteristic stem alternations and endings. Now, syntactic signposts. We can make this quick. The word order is comparatively flexible due to the mythology. Classical prose often favors subject-object-verb tendencies, but subject-verb-object is also common, and poets or authors vary for emphasis. Now, clitic or enclitic particles such as ke, meaning and, ne is a question particle, and ve, meaning or, attach to words and affect syntax as well as pragmatic force. And lastly, subordination and indirect speech. You see, indirect statement uses the accusative and infinitive construction. The adjunctive controls a range of subordinate clause types, such as purpose, result, indirect question, as well as cum clauses with nuanced readings. So, with that out of the way, let us finally have a look at the pronunciation. Actually, the alphabet is so easy, there is no need to really focus on that. And we will use the historical reconstructed pronunciation and not the classical one. So we have A, I, B, K, D, E, V, G, H, I. But in front of another vowel it is Y, L, N, O, P, K, R, similar to the Attic R or the Spanish one. S, T, U, X, U, Z. Yeah, that's it already. It might be a bit harder for a native English speaker, but the pronunciation is basically like it is written, with a few exceptions. And once we are getting to hear it actually in context of words, phrases and sentences, you will get a hang of it pretty easily.